We definitely have a quorum. Can we get a timekeeper and a minutes taker?
I keep time.
I can do minutes. Oh,
Oh,
two
great.
of us.
Okay.
But
Uh,
somebody needs to get the timestamps to Mount Mansfield TV.
I can
Can
do it.
yeah.
Julian, can you do that, Julian? You know
I
what to
can. Yep.
do.
Yep.
And you know the format where they like to start with like the zero and then um
Oh,
I,
wait,
I
wait.
can I can send you a template.
Send in mine from last week.
Oh
If
yeah,
that with she said it worked. If she liked it.
yeah, that one worked fine. I also have one because we just started recording with RCC. Um
So they don't right. They don't want
I can
time like 7:30. They want 15 minutes in, 8
Yes,
minutes in.
exactly. So
Yeah.
if you
Okay.
just exactly, if you just start like a timer and then whenever we switch topics, then you
Yeah.
just use the timestamp from whatever time
Okay.
we're at. And
Well, in that
then
case, can we restart the recording so I can get it from scratch because I didn't put the timer in.
uh well, we could well they'll figure it out. I mean,
Call
They
it a
can bump it.
minute.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Great.
I
yeah, or we can
I can
what
do
time?
it. I do it every meeting as a rule, so it's very familiar to me. And
Okay.
If
Great.
Julian can be the policeman, for
Yeah.
timekeeping
Yeah.
of this meeting, I can
Okay.
just do the notes and send them to Mount Mansfield TV. Is that okay, Julian? We share
Oh yeah.
that
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that
That's
way.
fine. I'll be a good
Good.
cop. Yeah.
Okay, so Ian, you're gonna do the time codes for MMC TV. Do we have a notes taker?
Ian volunteered.
Were you going to
Ian,
do
you're
that,
gonna
Ian?
do timekeeping and minutes?
Oh, I see.
I don't know if he was volunteering for minutes.
I can do my best, yeah. I'll make sure I get the transcript from Duncan. That always helps.
Yeah, I can forward it. I mean, he sometimes he forwards it to everybody, but if he forwards it just to me and Brad, then I'll just forward it to you.
Good, thanks.
Okay, cool. All right then. Next up, uh, approval of the January 12th minutes. I know those came a little bit late. Did folks get a chance to look at those?
Yep. I move we approve.
I'll second.
Okay, great. The only comment I had is Trail Finder is not plural. So it's TrailForks and Trail Finder without an S.
Mm, that's true.
But aside from that, the rest of the minutes looked great to me. Any other comments?
Nope.
Sonia, do you want me to just subtract the S and then get those to Duncan, or do you want to make that change and submit to Duncan?
If it wouldn't be too much trouble, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I should get my
And just a
excuse.
mea culpa, for the record, that's on me that the minutes were late. And I will do better.
All good.
No worries. The 2 week meeting
I,
is an intense schedule.
yeah, I completely forgot. And then when Ian was like, "Well, where are the minutes?" It's like, "Oh yeah, that's a good point."
Right?
So we need to vote on the minutes.
Yes, we do. Thank you. Right.
Yep.
Yeah, all in favor to approve the January 12th minutes, say aye.
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 Stokes abstaining because I wasn't present at the meeting.
Okay, thanks, Ian.
I can get those to Duncan if you want.
I can do it. I just have to
Sure.
subtract the S and then get them over.
Okay.
That'll take 2 seconds. Okay, next up, we have any additions or changes to the agenda? No, okay.
No.
Moving on. We will do some trails updates. So we can do these in either order. Ian, do you want to do Trail Finder first, or should I give the TrailForks update? I've got a decent amount to present, more than I expected.
Sure. Yeah, sure. I can. Should I put up the? Should I share screen? Put the present draft up.
great.
Yeah. Okay, share, send request.
Okay, you should be good. Try again.
Yeah, so that should be visible.
Yep, I can see it.
So this draft, as normal in a trail finder entry, has, what is it, 5 components. So the first page is the one that you're seeing now. It gives a summary of the statistics. It gives a description that I wrote. That may be the main thing that needs scrutinizing. There's a map, which unfortunately, one thing I don't like about TrailFinder is there's only one color for trails, but apart from that, that's the map of existing trails. So it shows Vast, the access road, the Velco roads, the Urbanic Way, and then these ones over here. And then you have to blow it up to see that there's parking, kiosk, and so on there. Directions fairly simple. It tells us how many miles from Richmond and from Jonesville on Route 2, and then you're across from Maplewood. No comments yet. They can be, not quite sure what the procedure is for comments. Send them into to Trail Finder administrators, I think. Services. Oh, that's interesting. It's kind of like, hadn't seen this before. It's like advertising of interesting nearby attractions. Going back to the description, maybe it's on map. Somewhere there are photographs. Has anyone seen
I think it's just up.
those? They're currently, oh, there we go. Yeah, they're on the front
At the
page.
top.
So currently there's, I'm not sure how, is this all of this screen visible? I'm not seeing quite all of it myself, but there are 2 photographs. One is this view across the valley, and then there's this one, which I think probably should be smaller. I'm not sure the whole thing is visible, but the message there is if we want to post this Andrews Community Forest page to Trail Finder, it would be good to have some more photographs. If people have them, they like to give a credit as to whose photograph it is, so we know that it's, you know, not a copyright issue or anything. I think that's the reason. So take a look through your recent photographs, see if you snapped any good ones, and let us know, especially for different seasons. Of course, you know, one could go out, take pictures now, but be good to cover different seasons. So yeah, that's a quick walk through the material that's there at present. So I'm open for discussions and suggestions that I can forward to the Trail Finder administrator if need be.
Ian, is it tucked under, you know, Richmond, Vermont, or, you know, is there a section of which this is a part, or is this just the next level up is all the Trail Finder sites in the world? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can get at it different ways. You can search on the town. So yeah, if you search on Richmond, it'll show you everything that's within the town boundary of Richmond. And somewhere, oh, there is a note about connecting trails, so that I think it's on this draft page already. I certainly alerted the Trail Finder administrator to the fact that we connect with VYCC, and there is a VYCC page at TrailFinder.
Good. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah, it looks good. I guess I didn't realize that farm road and meadow meander are different trails. I didn't realize meadow meander is so short.
Yes, it is.
Just tease into like the farm road.
Yes.
Okay, that's good because I can update the TrailForks to reflect that as well. Because right now it looks different. The only thing in here that I see that seems a little off to me is in the description, the last sentence of the first paragraph, the southern lower part of the forest is identified as a region for limited human recreation. I don't know. It just strikes me as a little bit uninviting. And the fact that, dispersed, I just feel like we could do without that sentence because like dispersed human use in the forest is allowed. And because the trails show where the trails are, people will understand like, okay, here are the places I'll probably recreate. But I don't know. To me, it comes across as telling people to like stay away from the northern section, which, I guess we don't necessarily want to invite people up there, but I don't think we should be pushing them away from it either, because technically based on the easement, dispersed hiking in the northern section is allowed. So that's the only thing that stands out to me. But everything else looks great. I really like the way that it's just laid out, and it's got all the trails and it's got good information here, and it's got the our contact or the town manager, I guess. So yeah, I don't know if anyone has thoughts on
Go
ahead,
and
Ian.
it's text in the second paragraph that you're pointing to that. I'm not,
It was the
sorry,
last
can you
sentence.
direct me again,
Last-
just so I know sure what you were mentioning here?
It's the last sentence of the first paragraph.
Oh, okay.
Just the southern lower part of the forest is identified as a region for limited human recreation. Just strikes me as a little bit, I don't know, maybe we could rewrite it or something.
Yeah, could we rewrite the sentence to say that the southern portion has more intensive human recreation and the northern section has more limited recreation?
Mm-hmm.
Or,
I
well,
don't think we don't need to get into management plan stuff. Put yourself in the shoes of a user who's going to show up and just look for the trails that are out there. They'll walk what trails there are, and they don't know if there's a forestry preserve, if there's a sensitive area thing. They want to look at the management plan, fine, or the map, fine. But I would, whoever goes there is just going to stick to whatever trail they're on.
So remove the sentence then, is what you're saying.
That's kind of my
Yeah.
thought.
Okay. Yep.
So yeah, I'm hearing two options maybe. One is remove that sentence, and the other would be to qualify it. My tendency would be to just say the southern part of the forest is where the trails are, or words to that effect. So I'm open to either of those, modify the sentence or remove it.
I think we could remove it simply because in TrailFinder, it does not show the property boundary of the forest. And because of that, it doesn't really give any context for the user who's looking at the page. They're not necessarily going to know, like, where is the southern section? Like, how far does it go? So I think, like, to Julian's point, if they're on this site, they're going to look, they're going to see where the trails are, and then they're just going to use those trails. And maybe they do a little exploring further into the forest, and that's fine too. So I say we just remove the sentence.
I think so too. And Ian, overall, I think it's a fantastic job. Thank you for doing this.
yeah, no kidding.
Yeah,
Sure.
I agree.
Well, so action plan is send a revision to the TrailFinder administrator saying we want to cut that last sentence of the first paragraph. It would be nice at the same time to submit some more images. I'm inclined to resubmit the one that shows the panel from the kiosk, the rules. Any other Has anybody got images? Should I be waiting for images to come in, or we can send them in the spring when somebody goes out there and takes something
Good.
in
I
a
got a
different
couple. I
season?
can
Okay,
look.
I
I've
will.
got a couple. They're in the car, but
I'm not sure he heard you.
I'll I'll take a look, Ian.
Yeah, okay, I'll hold off on contacting the trail finder, but once I have those, I'll submit it. And then we could ask them at that point to make it public, or should we do one more sweep through by the committee before making it public?
I think it's fine to make public. Do we want to just take a, well, I have one more little like nitpicky thing, and we don't really have to change this, but I'm noticing up for one of the trails, it's the Western Trail, the like access road that Velco uses. It goes longer, it goes off the property. And it might be good to sort of retract the section of the trail that's bleeding into the Mike and Jen's property.
I know, I've noticed that even though we don't show the boundary, you and I know that that part of the vast trail is a little longer than it should be as it goes outside of the
It's not a huge
property
deal,
line.
but yeah, it's that line that's like after the hook, like the sort of like bump before it like heads to the
Yeah.
west. That straight line after that little like hooky bump thing should probably be about 30% of its current length. There's a little
I can
like,
shorten that.
yeah, there's a
Yeah,
little
I
like
can
notch.
shorten that and I can cut it off where it crosses the property line.
Yeah, so there, I'll send you a picture of, yeah, that's about right. It should be a little bit shorter, but I can send a well, you'll see in a second actually, because I actually mapped it for TrailForks, and it's should be like GPS accurate, so you'll be able to see how long it is on the TrailForks page. But that's the only note I have aside from that sentence thing. So I don't know. I guess it sounds like we're all in agreement here, but maybe we just do a quick little vote here. Does someone want to?
Can I just raise a trail
please.
point? See the utility road east versus west under the power lines? Do we view that as being connected to the old vast trail to the east? We're not showing it there, but it goes, that's where it stops, and then you walk down the meadow to get to the vast trail.
Oh, yeah.
And it is being brush hogged.
Yeah.
And it is being used. So do we want to extend that where the arrow is to the east to tie into the Vast Trail East?
I have that. Actually, I've been working on the other maps. I walked that section of the road and so I have the GPS track and so I can substitute that. That's okay. So we're actually got two changes on the map. There's the western part of the vast trail, and then there's the eastern extent of the Velco access.
Yeah,
I
that's
can
good.
do both of
We've
those.
talked about that before. I think it's a good idea to add it in.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Any other comments or suggestions?
No, it's great.
Cool. Does somebody want to make a motion to approve this draft page?
I'll make a motion to approve this draft page.
Second?
Second.
Sorry,
I'll
but it's the
Are you
draft
calling
page
for a second?
pending the changes, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, with the pending changes. Yeah, sorry, I was calling for a second. I can do it, but normally.
I'll second.
Okay, great.
But,
Great.
but
Any
just to be
further
clear,
discussion?
well, just for the minutes, it's a movement to accept pending those changes that we've talked about. But there's three
Yes.
changes: the text change and two map changes. Correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Then
Yeah.
submit to TrailForks to make it public, to TrailFinder to make it public.
Or you're going to
Correct. Is
change
that part of the motion?
Ian, you're going to change the kiosk picture also, right?
I can do that, yeah.
So there's 4 changes.
Yeah.
And I think once it's up, it's kind of, we're just managing the page and it's probably fine if it has, I don't think we necessarily need to vote on every little thing. I think the main gist here is that we're in support of getting this page live on TrailFinder, so that folks can use it. And so yeah, I guess any other thoughts or comments or questions before we take a vote?
Like it.
Okay, cool. I guess we'll just go around and state your name and your vote. Sam, aye.
Brad, aye.
Right, aye.
Sonia, I.
Julian, aye.
Stokes, aye.
And I heard you, Julian.
Dan, I.
Great. Cool. So everyone is in favor. Excellent. Cool. Thanks for working on that, Ian. And then, yeah, I guess let us know once that is live, or if you have any other, issues with making those adjustments.
Will do. I will do
great.
that.
Next up, still on trails, we're going to pivot to TrailForks. So I met with Willie from TrailForks on Friday and got a training on how to use TrailForks, and he gave me admin access, so I can basically update anything that we want in there now, which is great. So we don't have to rely on anybody else for that. What resulted from that training is that we ended up actually deleting the account that I created for the Andrews Community Forest, because you're not supposed to create accounts for entities. You're supposed to create accounts for users. So I deleted, basically, he ended up deleting that account. I created an account, a Sam Pratt account, and then he created an Andrews Community Forest group, which is a separate entity on TrailForks, and then linked me as an admin of that group. And we can actually, if anyone else has a TrailForks account and they would like to be added to the ACFC group, you can also be added as an admin. There's a limit, I think, to the number of admins that they approve, per region. But so those changes happened. I guess I can share my screen with some of this stuff, and I just also wanted to make sure that folks are okay with a sentence that I wrote about a description of the group. Okay, so first I'll do the group. So yeah, this is the entity, the ACFC entity, kind of like the VIMBA or Richmond Mountain Trails. This is our organization. So, it's got the Richmond, Vermont logo. This is the sentence that I wrote. The ACFC is an advisory committee responsible for management of the Andrews Community Forest. All major decision making is made by the Richmond Select Board. I just figured it was worth clarifying that we're not making all the rules, but we're doing it at the pleasure of the Select Board. Any issues with that? Or are folks cool with that description?
Fine.
That's fine.
Cool.
Doing a time check. I think we're supposed to be past this at 25 past.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I'd like to get through this because then we can just be done with all the TrailForks stuff, hopefully. But I appreciate the time check. I'll try to get through this quickly. So that's the group, and then this is basically the directory page for the group. I don't think there's a way to change it from Trail Association, but this is essentially the group as well. And then we have the actual forest itself. Now you're not going to be able to see it on the screen, but if you're looking along at home, you can see now, I can kind of trace it. There's a very, very light blue line here now that is actually the boundary of the forest. So now you can actually see ACF on the map accurately. And then I made a few changes and additions. So I added this trail, the former Bass Trail that didn't exist before. And then I don't know what to do about Powerline Loop. I don't think we talked about if we wanted to rename that, but I don't think it should be called Powerline Loop. Urbanic Way, I adjusted because I have admin access now, I can use the heat map and see like actual people who have used the trails. And so you can basically adjust the trails based off of like actual human use. So if like 50 people took the trail, it'll show you like a pretty nice average, and you can kind of like bump the trail so that it fits within like the average. Yes, Julian, I'm with you there. These I think are kind of temporary. Because yeah, I agree. Like we had discussions, and I'm in full support of us using Abenaki language for these trails. I think the main thing for now was that they were just random names that we don't even know where they came from. Like Fields to VYCC was like one of the trail names that doesn't really represent anything meaningful. So we were trying to at least get these like in line with historically what they've sort of been referred to as. Ian, do you have a comment?
You're
Yeah,
muted.
could I make a comment, Sam?
Mhm.
Um,
Go for it.
just to note that both Sam and I both attended the Richmond Trails Committee meeting just about a week ago to tell them that we have observed that the TrailForks needs editing, and that Sam has taken on that task of sort of getting responsibility for it. Also noting that we have a provisional entry at Trail Finder, which actually is the way that the Richmond Trails Committee makes the Richmond Trails public. That's what you see at the town, at their page at the town website. So it was a good exchange of letting them know what we've been doing and hearing how they manage things. And so I think and emphasizing that because the Andrews Community Forest is town property, we kind of have a special responsibility as the committee for the town forest through to the select board. And so we take this public information seriously. And I think it was a good meeting, and it was timely because I think we've had very little direct communication with the Trails Committee, and we don't have a member of that committee on ours, the arrangement we're supposed to have for coordinating between us. So I think it was a good meeting. It was a good exchange factually, and also helpful to get that communication going. Is that a reasonable summary, Sam? You were there also.
Yeah, it was a good meeting. Felt nice to just reach out to them and make sure we're all on the same page, and it was friendly, and Ian did remind them that we'd love to have a member of them of their committee join this committee since we still have an empty seat. But yeah, they seemed cool and understanding of what we're trying to do here. Not that we're trying to like wrench control of all this stuff away from RTC or RMT, but that we should have the power to make changes if need be. Be as the sort of assigned responsible party for the forest itself. It doesn't really make much sense for this stuff to all exist out on the internet with us having no ability to, close a trail or make administrative changes. So they seem to be totally cool with that. And it felt good to just reach out to them because we haven't been working super close with them, and we haven't had a rep since Chase left last summer. So yeah, it felt good to reach out and make that connection.
Did we take care of Julian though on his comment?
Maybe the
Julian,
Abenaki
are
name
you?
one?
Did you? did you get a response or
Yeah.
discussion you were looking for?
Yeah, I
Yeah, yeah.
mentioned, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I just,
Yeah, it's just something like I think we should consider all of these names temporary until we finally get around to naming stuff. And I don't think there's any
Yeah.
disagreement about that. I just want to point it out.
Yeah, it's a good reminder. And I totally agree. I think that is something we had committed to, and I think it's that's a good thing for us to not forget about.
I do have a question for you though, Sam. Are you thinking so we had talked about being consistent with opening and closing of the trails with neighboring conditions.
Yep.
And so it's good that, you know, as the committee we can control and stuff. Are you having control? Are you planning on being the guy who's out there checking conditions, you know, every other day kind of thing? And if you are, fine. And if you're not, we talked about other arrangements too. What's your plan? I know you're out there a lot anyway.
Yeah, I am, but I don't want to be that responsible party. I think that
Okay.
generally what we had agreed on, and I don't know if we need to like vote on this, but we had basically decided that I think Max Krieger is the one who does a lot of the trail openings for some of the other trails in Richmond. And I think that's true of the Maplewind ones, which are the closest and are probably going to have the most similar conditions. And essentially what we wanted was for all the trails to be in sync. And we can work on that communication. Like it could be that if they're closing their trails, we want them to close our trails at the same time. But if they're opening their trails, that we don't want them to open ours at the same time, but maybe send a reminder. So maybe that's a good thing for us to discuss at a future date. I like the idea of having everything in sync so that, you know, one trail doesn't end up getting hammered with a bunch of traffic because it wasn't closed or whatever. And it also makes sure that we don't forget, you know, like there have been times where there's been a tree down or there's been an issue with a trail in ACFC. And some people have been like, hey, like, why did nobody come take care of this until, you know, some member of the public like cleared the tree or something. So we certainly have a lot that we could do to be better and to stay on top of that stuff. So I think working in coordination with a passionate local group like Richmond Mountain Trails is the smart idea. And I think that we still have the sort of veto power, you know, to close a trail if we notice, hey, this trail is really muddy and people shouldn't be using it, then we still have the ability to do that now. So I think that's kind of like what we had arrived at, but I guess maybe not voted on. Ian?
Yeah, I know I mentioned to you, Sam, and we discussed briefly the idea of inviting Max Krieger to come to one of our meetings, because if he is taking on a responsibility for updating current conditions on the trails, you know, I think it's agreed that's a good plan, but it's kind of be nice to have him meet with us and just, you know, clarify responsibilities and communication and so on.
Yeah.
Could we do that?
Yeah, I think that, yeah, let me email Max first and just make sure that our general plan for syncing up the trails, like that I'm not misunderstanding, and assuming that that is something that we can coordinate, then I'll invite him to come to to one of our meetings and we can talk about what we would like that to look like, or he can explain what it looks like on his end. But I think that's a good call. I don't think it's well, we'll get to it in a few minutes, but I think priority one, I think we're really close to like wrapping up the management plan. So I think that that's a good topic for once we've gotten through the management plan stuff, because yeah, I don't know. I just think that anything that's slow that might slow us down there is probably not something we need to talk about. So speaking of, I guess I should just probably burn through the rest of this update real quick. So basically, we have access now to TrailForks. I'm an admin. I can make somebody else an admin if they want to be one. I made a few changes. I was able to cut up the trail like we talked about. So I need to rename this because I thought this whole thing was Meadow Meander, and apparently part of it or most of it is the farm road. And then note now this section ends where the right of way ends, or like the ownership changes, and then this section is its own section that's technically owned by Maplewind, and then then this is still ACF. So
Right.
So yeah, I think I cleaned up a lot of the issues that we had with what was going on in here, and now we've fixed the problem where we don't have access to stuff in TrailForks, which is also, you know, concerning to us. So I think we're looking a little bit better, right?
Would it, with the section that is owned by Maplewind, would it be good to get the Hennessy's permission to allow us to map it on our map? Because it is a critical link.
Yep.
Owned by somebody else.
Yes, and yeah, I think maybe we need to have a talk with Bruce or Beth about it, just because, yeah, I think we probably can do that because of the right of way, but they could probably do the same thing with ours, like
Right.
because of their right of way. Although I guess it depends on like what the right of way is for. So I think we probably need to have a discussion with them about how do we want this to look on TrailForks and like who is responsible for it. And just so there's no miscommunication there, because I would hate for us or them to update a trail and then for the other person to be like, hey, what are you doing? Like,
Right.
you know, opening or closing our trails or making edits.
Right.
So
These don't show the property boundaries. Same with
Well,
TrailFinder, right? Or do they?
it does.
Is
You
it
just
there?
can't see
You
it.
just
See,
can't
if you
see it.
look here, see, there's a very light blue.
Oh my gosh.
You can
yeah.
barely see it, but it's not 100% perfect. I think I did a pretty good job, but I wasn't able to load it from a GIS file. So basically, I had to pull up two maps until they were the exact same zoom, and then would like overlay them and then like trace the line.
Good
So
job.
it worked out pretty well. What had been set up by Willie was like it was like didn't make any sense at all. It was like he didn't understand like the shape, and
Right.
so I at least wanted to mostly fix it. But I might go through and try to do a more accurate pass in the future. But I just wanted to get it generally
Yeah.
set up. But yeah, I think that's probably enough on trails for now, because we have other stuff to cover. Does anyone have any thoughts or questions? I think we're in pretty good shape now with TrailForks, and we can continue to make edits as we so desire now. You know, we can basically just make these decisions as a group and then, you know, relay that to me, or we can appoint another admin who can also do this stuff. And so we can also, I guess what I will say is we can use it for mapping trails in the future. You can actually set up a trail. You can walk a route and then you can import it into TrailForks and you can keep it private. And so we could basically, you know, like the wetlands bypass that we've been talking about, we could potentially just walk that. I could just record it as a hike on my phone in TrailForks, come into TrailForks, and then it will just magically appear on the map, but only be visible to us until we publish it. So there's a lot of pretty cool functionality here. I was kind of overwhelmed by the amount of information that was given to me, and we didn't even really scratch the surface. But Willie was very nice, and he was basically like, hit me up anytime, and you know, he'd be happy to do a follow-up training. So yeah, it was nice working with him.
That's Willie Lee.
Willie, his name's Willie Jacobs.
Oh, that's a different Willie. Okay.
He works for outside.com, which is like the
Oh.
owner of TrailForks.
Oh, I thought,
So
okay.
he's like, that's just like his day job, I think.
Right.
It's like he runs these types of meetings. And so I think is the same person that maybe trained Jim and maybe even Max or Merrick or some of the other folks who are
Oh,
doing some of this TrailForks stuff. But
Good.
yeah, I mean, he's got a Google Calendar. I can basically just book a time on his calendar and then meet up with him whenever.
So just to me, it's interesting. You are overseeing this and
Mhm.
we're overseeing this, which is great. It's awesome.
Yep.
The Overrockers property, which is owned by the town,
Mhm.
which in effect is another town forest
Yes.
we don't really call it that, but
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Town-owned property that has a trail on it.
Right.
Silver Maple.
And Richmond Mountain Trails is the overseer
Mhm.
of that, and that has worked historically well.
Yep.
From everybody's perspective, I think.
Yep. And that's what was reflected at the RTC meeting, that they had basically decided to delegate like the trail management stuff to Richmond Mountain Trails.
Right.
And so yeah, I always get a little bit fuzzy on like, when is this a decision that needs to be made by the select board instead of like a committee, right? It seems like to make sense to me that Richmond, the trails committee could delegate that work and that it wouldn't necessarily need to be approved by the select board, but I also don't want to overstep. So
Right. No, I just think it's great. It's awesome.
yeah, I think we're getting more synced up, you know, and it'll feel hopefully more organized.
Right.
And, you know, I am hoping we can continue to strengthen our bonds with both Richmond Trails Committee and Richmond Mountain Trails, because like, you know, we're all, yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's been like a little bit of like fracturing just like over the years, just because of like differences of opinion on different things. And I think ultimately there's a lot of like similarities in like goals and priorities. And like, unfortunately, there has just been a little bit of I don't know, like a cloud over some of that stuff. And so like, I think I'm pretty encouraged by a lot of the
That's great.
discussions I've had both privately and like in public meetings with some of these folks. And so I'm
Good.
confident that we can continue to strengthen the bond and like have a strong working relationship with both RTC and RMT.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, opportunities, issues are gonna come up that both groups have to get, deal with.
Yep.
And so we have nice, good open lines of communication. It's gonna make that a lot easier.
Yep. And they got a lot, like, you know, they've got very like passionate people that, you know, really like to do, you know, trail building or trail maintenance or, you know, volunteer days and stuff. And so like, I feel like there's a user group there that we could absolutely tap into. And that part of it's just about like, you know, communicating and doing a better job of yeah, just like keeping in touch with those groups and making sure that it's like a friendly working relationship and not something that feels like adversarial. Okay, any other comments? We should probably move on.
Yes, Sam, I think that's a great idea. And I think it also goes without saying, because you're the representative, but having that kind of communication with the Conservation Commission would also be a beneficial thing.
Yep, that's been happening actually, in part because RCC had an application for a bunch of mowing equipment, like like a brush hogger and like a weed whacker and some other equipment that RCC approved the CRF app, and then the select board also did. And in doing so, we've been working with Max, who is the one who submitted that request, and we've been trying to coordinate with them on potentially like mowing schedules to, you know, make sure we're protecting like insects and birds and, you know, whatever else are on these trails. And then also having like some sort of protocol for cleaning equipment to make sure that we're not spreading invasive plant species around the town by mowing one place and then bringing the brush hogger somewhere else and then, you know, spreading a bunch of wild parsnip or, you know, whatever, you know, so yeah, that things that seem to be going pretty well there too. So like I've been very encouraged by the communications we've had so far, and I have no reason to believe that things won't continue to get better as we continue to work more closely with them. Okay, well, we should move on. Sorry, when I planned the agenda, I had not yet met with Willie and wasn't expecting to have this TrailForks thing go so long. But as you may have noticed, I started removing the times from the agenda and put like an estimated time for each thing, which basically gives us the ability to give or take time from any topic without us sort of like violating rules. At least that's my understanding. Select board kind of does the same thing where they don't really put times on the agenda. They put estimated amount of time. So not that we should just go on too long for each item, but we can kind of like, you know, borrow time and move things around a little bit more flexibly now, because I learned that via RCC meetings and how I timed things poorly. And then we kind of had to sit and twiddle our thumbs for a few minutes because we couldn't go on to the next topic yet. Okay, so now we're going to talk about more mapping, I guess, but this time returning to the buffer map that we talked about last time. Hopefully we can just wrap up the sort of final few, I don't know, just one quick pass on it. Ian, did you want to share your screen, or I can pull up the map that you sent if you'd rather I share?
Yeah, I have it ready to go.
Okay, yeah, take it away.
Is that sort of the static view of it? If necessary, I can bring up the QGIS software that that builds this map, so you can turn layers on and off. But that's got what we're seeing now is pretty much all the layers that are available and have been discussed. So it's got all the natural features, it's got the trails, it's got streams, forest areas, and what I trust is correctly assigned as the buffer areas around each feature that is wanting to have buffers. So that's what we have currently, and yeah, this is destined, as I understand, for the section B8, the recreation section, to show how trails interact with protected and sensitive areas.
Yes, exactly. B6. So yeah, for the B6 section, especially as it relates to the trail proposal process, just so when folks are mapping stuff out, they have the map that this committee has approved, so that everyone's sort of looking at the same thing and they understand, like, here are the mapped places in the forest, and like here are the buffers, and here are the, you know, temporal buffers too, because like notice now this version has the lighter shaded buffer around the hemlock. Although I am seeing it missing from the hemlock stand that is just to the west of that main wildlife corridor. Is there a reason why that doesn't have the that one? Yeah.
I think
Looks like
so. I think that was mapped by Ethan as a stand that he put that on as a reserve zone because I think he said it hadn't been logged recently, but it wasn't a pure hemlock stand like the other one. It did have more hemlock than in general, but it wasn't. It was a different reason.
Yeah,
he mapped it.
that's my understanding, Dan, that that area of hemlock sort of was taken from the Ethan Tapper shapefiles and didn't exist in the shapefiles that we got from Arrowwood. So it's kind of an additional one, and it's clear it would be an error. And you know, as long as we agree that that Tapper identified hemlock is a thing that should be added to what Arrowwood showed, then it should have a buffer. It may be my error. I'm not sure if I've established a buffer for it and just haven't shown it on this map. I could check on that. But anyway, I take note of that. Is that then the sense of the committee that I should act on that I should add the standard hemlock buffer? Well, yeah, the standard hemlock buffer right now is shown kind of semi-transparent. It's pink, but it's a different shade of pink because it's semi-transparent. There was a call, I think, at our last meeting to identify it as shaded as opposed to solid pink. The reason
Yes,
being that it's
that's
a
correct.
buffer that is applied during winter and not year-round. So it sounds like I should add that semi-transparent pink to that area.
Maybe. Julian, comment?
Well, that was actually one of my questions. So thanks for clarifying that, Ian. Yeah, that buffer is seasonal, right? So we need
Yes.
some sort of indication of how it's different. And I know it's hard because we got so many layers and details and stuff. Just a couple of things I think we talked about, making sure that we're not legislating outside our mandate. So you know, not putting protected zones in parts of the forest that we don't have a mandate for, I think is probably good. And just remind me, I know we talked about this, but I cannot remember and I can't find in my notes right now. Those two little fried eggs on the eastern corner that have that giant buffer on them. What is that?
Vernal pools.
Those are vernal
Eastern-
pools.
And they
Yeah.
get a
Um,
giant buffer. Yeah.
That is
Oh,
a-
I think
No.
can I move?
Oh, yeah.
I'm moving my
Yeah.
point to the what you're drawing our attention to, Julian. Is that correct? That on
Just
the really
south of that.
extreme east.
I'm talking about the two south of that.
Like these two? I don't know if you can see
Yeah.
my map. but-
Yeah.
I think these are vernal pools. These three things here that have really quite a large buffer, and that's the the agreed size of a vernal pool buffer.
All right, which was 300.
And yes, Julian, I remember you pointed out that we were putting buffers around, putting buffers that spread into an adjoining property, and I modified them as best I could. They don't, just the way I draw those buffers, it's difficult because they have such a big width to them that they spread beyond where you really want them to be. They don't come to a firm halt when they see a boundary.
Yeah.
I'm hoping, you know, I know we have it as an expectation, as a hope that this can be passed to somebody with more expertise than me. That's John Haddon, and he may be able to clean things up a little bit so the buffers are more, you know, under control within the ACF rather than bleeding over the boundary.
Yep. And just because the key is not entirely there, so the solid green lines are the trails that we know are out there, and the dotted green lines are old logging roads, or what are the dotted green lines?
Yeah, the broken green lines are forest roads, so technically they're not trails. The solid green, I sort of run out of colors, but the solid green is the foremost trail. And then and responding to Wright's suggestion, all the Velco roads are shown here as in black, and then real trails, sort of recognized trails, lightly maintained trails are red.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thanks.
Brad, and then Wright.
I read today I looked at the Arrowwood report though, and VLTs in that the only as far as what I can read, the only confirmed, and UVM, the only confirmed vernals are the 2 fried eggs. The one up above it that's bleeding over the edge is identified. It was who saw that? It was either Arrowwood or UVM, but it wasn't confirmed. They saw it one time in the year. It's a potential. So it might be nice to be able to somehow show that as potential. It's not necessarily one, ideally what you do, I believe, you look at it during the amphibian breathing season, see if you see stuff in there, take a sample of the water, you make sure there are no fish in there, and then even come back maybe in September and see if there's still water there. That's kind of would really cinch it, although I don't think that's necessarily a total requirement. Then the other confirmed one is the one up right there, right where Sam's pointing at that point in the property boundary in the north. And the other thing is the green hemlock on the east. Since that's really a reserve zone, and it is there are some dense hemlock in there. I've seen them.
East or west?
East, right? No.
The long skin.
Oh, I'm sorry, west. I'm sorry. Yeah,
The west one.
Yeah.
That has no buffer.
yeah, that one is has hemlock in it, but it's not dominant. It's hard to say because the uncolored area around it is a zone. And that's the biggest feature that Ian has mapped as far as species composition. So it doesn't necessarily apply to one part of it, but overall, that whole area that we flagged and that is unflagged up here isn't necessarily solid hemlock. So I think without being able to say that hemlock is the dominant species throughout that, I know in parts of it, it is. We saw it and it seemed to escape the Arrowwood people. They have a little teardrop of hemlock spanning the central corridor in the southeast part of that green. They identify that as a hemlock natural community on Arrowwood. But to call that the whole thing one,
I wouldn't put a buffer around it, and what I would make it white, like the one up in the corner. It's a reserve zone that has some both forestry recommendations, which is mainly stay away, leave it alone, let nature take its course, to paraphrase the page. I could look it up, but also the same with recreation. It says, basically no recreation there. If you had minimal recreation there, excuse me. And if you must go in there, like cross it. So in a way, treat it like a stream. So if a trail has to be built through there, just get in and get out quick is the idea. But I think it should be white, Ian, if it's a reserve zone. Instead of, identifying it with one dominant species like you can across the way, that's accepted. I've seen that. VLT even, marked it as such, but they didn't do anything with the other one. Ethan's the one that is setting that aside in the forestry plan as a quote reserve zone. He's set others aside as reserve zones, but we've got them here, but they're within, totally within areas that we've marked as sensitive based on what Arrowwood and UVM and VLT has recommended. I don't know, is that clear?
That makes sense to me. Right, did you have a
So
question?
it relates to that. When I look at the key on the left, I see two separate reserves.
Yeah.
One says steep, and it's either gray or it's white, and then the one at the bottom is white. I'm looking for help. What's the difference?
Where's the first one, right? How far down? Oh, I see reserve
Halfway
steep.
down.
Oh, yeah. Right. I don't know.
Yeah, reserve steep.
Yeah.
Here.
Oh, Ian's got his
My
hand up.
understanding is right that these are the two that Brad has just been talking about. The white one is reserved called steep because that's sort of how Ethan Tapper referred to it, and it comes with this recommendation that Brad was just summarizing. So it's a kind of a distinct area in that respect, and then the other one that's identified as reserve, was that the hemlock that we were just talking about?
Yeah, the other one that's green on this map was, if you look at Ethan's stand map, it's a different shade of green. He didn't map it as a pure hemlock stand. He mapped it as a reserve zone for forest management. That area does contain some hemlock, but it wasn't mapped as a pure hemlock stand. Down towards the bottom of it is also where those broken ledges are that aren't really mapped yet, that we should probably get out there and map. But I don't think I agree with Brad that it doesn't meet the same hemlock buffer criteria that the other stand does.
And just so I'm sure, that's the one that currently doesn't have a buffer, and we were just discussing
Correct.
it doesn't have a buffer, it doesn't have a transparent, semi-transparent pink buffer around it. Is that the one that we're
And it's got
discussing
the
right
arrow
now?
is on it. The arrow is on it currently. Yeah, I don't know.
This
That
one.
That's the one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So I think you have it correct the way it is, Ian, although it would be good to get in there and delineate where those broken ledges are.
I know Julian has his hand up. If I could just step in there and point out that maybe a good way to handle these things is to have a good text underneath them rather than trying to kind of encode everything on the map, because we run out of codes eventually.
Right, did you raise your hand?
So I'm still on I'm still on the same reserve topic.
Yeah, I have a comment too. So we'll get to you, Julian.
So if you look at the meadow, which is just west of the words Farm Road, and you look at the power line right of way, they are also in white because they're open lands. So we need to, if we're going to have reserves and have them white, or at least a reserve in the north. And then we've got the power line that is white, and then the meadow, which is white. We've got to somehow differentiate.
And I think John Haddon did a pretty good job with the other map. So I mean, that is good feedback.
Yeah, just be mindful of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a good point. That it is very confusing, and we can see how confusing it is right now with the hemlock green and the reserve hemlock green.
Right.
You know, you look at them and it's just like, well, they look exactly the same. So
yeah.
those should be, distinctly different colors. And, as a graphic designer, like I think we all were pretty happy with the way that the map that John created before, while we had some issues with some of the features and like the width of it, how it was kind of
Right.
like stretched out. We did like the actual like design of the
It was
map itself.
appealing.
It was very easy to look at, and a little bit less, it just kind of like finessed some of those details. So I have faith that some of that stuff will be corrected. What I will say is, I think, and we'll talk about this in a second, because we do need to do like a final, like hopefully quick pass on B6 rec. But my thought on the vernal pool that's not been like delineated or confirmed, I do not think should be on the map. If it has not been like officially confirmed, we're kind of undermining our own ability to make any judgment on things in the forest if we're just putting stuff on there that's suspected. So that's my first thought. My second thought is, I think all the reserve zones should be the same color, because we're treating them the same way in the management plan. So the reason why we should have different color coding is because they're treated differently. I mean, I suppose it is nice to see the difference between red pine and like the dry oak, but technically you could combine those into one if you wanted to, because they get the exact same treatment. They get sort of a stay out within a 300-foot buffer. Hemlock is different because that's seasonal. The reserve zone is different. Those don't get buffers. Those are just saying, hey, we're trying to keep these, we're just trying not to put trails in here if we can help it, but you can cross them like streams, so it's not as strict. And so I would say, whether it's white or some other color, this reserve zone here at the top, and then this zone here that looks like hemlock right now, should both be the same color and should just be called, reserve zone.
Right.
Forestry reserve.
So to summarize, change those, and then if this isn't verified, we should remove this other vernal pool, because like I don't know, it sketches me out to put stuff on there that like is suspected, unless it's confirmed. Like it's, if we need to release a future version of the map that has like new confirmed things in there, then great. I think there should be a process for that.
And we should try to get out there and confirm it. I mean,
And we
it's in two places. Both Arrowwood and the field naturalists have spotted it. And it is of educational value and conservation value too.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know if that's gonna happen in time for it likely won't happen in time for publishing of like the MP2, and I think we just need to move forward. We've done as good a job as we can, and then there will be a pass in the future where if we know about new ecological features, that'll be part of the management plan revision process, or maybe the map is independent and can be updated. So that's like really all I have to say about that. Let me just read the comments real quick before.
And I have a last comment, if I could. It's
Sure.
easy.
Is it on the same topic?
No.
Okay.
It's on relating to the map, but it's not.
Okay. Well, we'll do Julian next, and then we'll do Ian, and then if you wanted to speak to your comment, and then right.
Sure.
Right. Mine's really easy. Right. Where is the line between VYCC and the Prelco land on the east side there?
Yeah, it's just north of the two fried eggs.
The two
Just
fried
east,
eggs. Okay.
just east, right about there.
Well,
Show me again. Whose arrow's got it? Whose arrow's on there?
Yeah, it's right about where the arrow is on the right there.
Is it about 2:00 around the fried eggs, Julian?
Yeah. Do you see it?
See that?
I don't see. I don't think I see the arrow that you guys are pointing at.
It's
That-
just,
so there's
it's
Go ahead. Sorry.
it's east of the fried eggs.
Can you zoom in on that, Sam?
oh, sure. Yeah, I can.
Now I'm saying that. I'm going to look for sure.
To follow the pointer automatically. No, not with that. So is it like, you're saying it's kind of like where there's a kink here?
It's right in there. Yep. I just gotta find it. Yeah.
So you've got the kink that's just to the east of the two fried eggs, but then above that, there's another kink before it bends. It seems like that.
Oh, I stand corrected.
Clearly, it's not gonna be able to see this.
Be able to see it.
Yeah. Well, Sam can match
Right
it.
there.
Oh, way up
Yeah,
there.
it's right there.
Oh, geez.
Oh, wow.
So you want to put the cursor. That's
Well, I
where it
can,
is.
but I'll center it on the screen. I don't think that Julian can see our hand. So
Okay.
I can't, but there's sort of like a, I don't know, almost a 90-degree angle.
It's north of that. I was incorrect.
yeah.
Oh,
it's-
okay.
So it's
Right about where that Forest Road crosses.
that's a
Uh-huh.
stream.
That's a stream.
Oh, that's
That's a
a stream.
stream.
the
Yeah,
purple
it's just
dot?
north of there.
Yeah, blue is intermittent. That's an
Yep.
intermittent
Blue.
stream.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
My mistake.
All right, great. Thanks, Rick. That's it.
Cool. And then yeah, I guess
I had one quick one, but
cool. Yeah, either or you or Ian both have a quick comment. So
could we make the old Vast Trail red instead of green? So that the trails that we currently have are red.
I think that would be helpful. And then keep the access roads black.
Keep the access roads black because they're roads. I mean, they're built up roads. That's my thought, but just a thought.
Keep it- Okay, red. I got you.
So oh, this is the trail map.
Yeah, color changes on the map are simple. I was trying to point to something and everything went crazy. But yeah, Vast Trail being changed to red is absolutely possible and will take me about 38 seconds to do that.
Okay. So I think we should summarize just to make sure we know all the things that we're trying to change here. So we want to change the forestry reserve zones to the same color, right?
Yep.
I should say correct. I said right.
That's
as
fine. I know the difference.
There's-
Most of the time.
and then remove the one unconfirmed vernal pool.
Or two. aren't
Are there two unconfirmed vernal
I
pools?
thought.
Well, I'll just say unconfirmed.
Oh, yeah, the second is the one that bleeds over the edge.
Yeah, vernal pool.
I mean,
Well,
And then there's a
yeah,
freestanding.
I was, if I could jump in here about vernal pools. I was talking with Brad about it, and I thought I understood that vernal pools, according to a good working definition, are ones that amphibians breed in. So you see frog spawn things there in the spring. So to confirm a vernal pool is a vernal pool, according to the working definition, you go up there in the spring and take a look and see what's going on in the water. And so that we can do that.
There's
Or
more
ask
than,
the
a little more than
Conservation
that.
Commission to do it or something.
It's a little more than
Is that a
that.
good understanding that, we don't need to leave vernal pools as confirmed or unconfirmed? We can confirm them quite easily in the spring.
Not quite, not quite. I mean, that's close. You want to do, you want to see that. You also, I remember because my daughter had to do it in middle school at Sandy Ferry's class. So we were checking them out in our area. And as I recall, you go in even before the breeding season with a little net and you look for fairy shrimp and, believe it or not, clams. And that's a good sign of the lack of fish. What you're really trying to find out if there are any fish in there. And if you see those guys, you can figure there's no, I think the way it goes, there's no fish because they haven't been eaten. Now that I think about it, with the fish totally wipe them out, I don't know. But anyway, there's something about finding the shrimp and the clams. And then you look for the breeding. And I think the only other thing that, as I said, that really puts it over if there's water in there deep into the summer, like all the way to September, would really cinch it. But I don't think that's a necessity. But still, confirmation isn't that hard. It takes a couple of trips, maybe 3.
And I think we should do that. Like, but
Oh, yeah.
but I think that right now we're talking about potential features on a map that are unconfirmed. And I really do not like the idea of putting anything that we have not confirmed on the map.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that just undermines the credibility of everything that we're doing with the management plan and the work of this committee. So I am fully in favor of us putting or like going out there and trying to confirm anything in the forest that we think is something that has not been mapped yet. But I feel like until we've gotten that confirmation, we have no business putting those things on the map because it's just misleading and just I just think it's going to come back to haunt us. It's just to me that's just not a very scientific way of doing things.
Although, you know,
Sort of like hedging our bets, being like, well, we're pretty sure it is, so we're just going to go ahead and put it on the map and just see. And then, oh, well, what happens if it's not? And then what happens if John Haddon can't update the map?
right,
You
but
know?
in another argument, I get a little bit slightly against that.
Sure.
In the interest of the do no harm,
Yeah.
it might be one. What if, and we could see if John can do it, if there's some, I don't know, crosshatch the circle or something, maybe not even put the buffer there,
Yeah.
but somehow mark it and then have it like a little, I don't know, a little blue question mark or a little salamander with a question mark on him. But anyway, just mark it as a potential.
What would that
without-
mean for rules, Brad? How would you manage for that? Maybe.
To actually write a rule?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the things that are on the map imply behaviors that we're trying to invite or
Right.
avoid. So,
Right.
you know,
I almost think, I mean, I think in our parameters, if you have to show the route in conjunction with our natural community map. If we have a potential one on there, it's going to show up. I don't know if we have to write a specific rule for it. So if someone came in and they had, say a proposal for a trail that went right through that thing, we'd go, whoa, we better check that out now. And that would build a little fire under us to go confirm it. That's all. Whether we need words for that, I don't know. Maybe not. Hopefully there'd be people on the committee would flag that. It would just be mean going in there and seeing something that's really, really important to the amphibian population of that forest, for quite an area around it too. But we wouldn't, to Sam's point, we shouldn't call it one if it's, if that hasn't been confirmed.
I think it belongs on a separate map. I'd like if we want to talk about like potential ecological features that have not been confirmed, I think it belongs on a different map. I just don't feel good about publishing a map that's supposed to be used for people who are trying to look for guidance for building trails and then confusing them by putting things on the map that like may or may not actually be what we think they are. It's like I don't know. I just don't feel good about that at all. I feel like if we want to have a third map, and maybe this isn't even one that we asked John to do because we're already asking a lot of him, but we just have our own map that's like, here's a list of all the places in the forest that we think something is going on and we would like to follow up. Like that's a nice little to-do list item for us once we have more time. And then we could, do little excursions and figure out like, oh yeah, this is a vernal pool or this is like a broken ledge or whatever. And we could go out and try to like map that stuff out. I think that's great. I really like that idea, but I just don't think we should put it on the official map that's meant for trail building because it's just confusing and it's kind of, I don't want to say it's dishonest, but it's like,
oh no,
it's but it just, I feel like it's it just undermines the credibility of what we're trying to do here. That's just my personal opinion.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't know, how do folks feel about that? Potentially if we want to have like a third map. I don't know if we necessarily need to do it in the same batch unless somebody's really itching to do.
I just think we need to remember to go look at it.
Yeah.
And then
we could get hit by a truck, so we ought to try to
Right.
get in. I mean, do it quickly. But yeah, I think there aren't that many potential things, right? I mean,
Sure.
we've got maybe all that, some more of the hemlock than was originally mapped. There's the broken ledge, and then these two guys, I think offhand, I can't think of others. But
Yeah.
it would be good to have that somewhere in the, or the committee, future committees too would see it, that's all. But I'd be happy with a separate map, that'd be okay.
Okay. Either map. Oh. Cool. Well, I wrote myself a reminder here to, look at mapping potential features, unconfirmed vernal pools, broken ledge, non-mapped hemlock. In the meantime, takeaways for Ian, just so we can summarize what we've talked about. We want to unify those two forestry reserve zones to the same color and not have a buffer on it, which is the way it's currently set up. We want to remove any unconfirmed vernal pools from the map. And then we want to change the former vast trail color to red.
Right.
So it matches the other existing trails in the forest. Were there any other things that I'm missing?
Picturing it in my head, no.
Oh, that there's the I should mention if possible, remove any like bleeding over the boundary of the forest for any buffers or trails, or it should ideally stay within the bounds of ACF, so we're not invading other people's properties around on the map. But I think that's everything, right? Am I missing anything?
That's what I've been hearing. That's what I've made notes about, those four things. And I just note that the fourth one, which is try to stop our buffers bleeding into across the boundary. I've really done the best I can with that. I've made some adjustments, but they're insufficient. I don't know how to do that with the expertise that I have with this particular software.
Yeah, no worries. I was just I was putting that as a note for whenever whoever talks to John, if that's just something that could be mentioned, like, hey, we would like to have all of the features within the bounds of the perimeter of the forest, if possible, and not have any of the buffers or trails or streams or any of those features.
I'll note that in the minutes.
Great. Do we need, I mean, I think that pretty much covers everything. Like, I know we've done a few revisions of this where we basically gave feedback and then Ian made the changes and then brought it back here. And then, we've done that a few times. I feel like we're ready to just let Ian make these changes and then for it to go to John whenever John's available. Is that fair? Because I would love to not have to keep talking about this. I mean, it is interesting to look at the maps, but I feel like we do spend a lot of time working on this. So
I think the next level of detail will be more aesthetic, colors and stuff, and that would really be John's.
yeah, and
Instead of trading Ian with tweaking colors and.
yeah, and ideally John's going to do it in like one shot. I mean, I don't know like what our relationship with him is, but I want to take advantage of his like kindness in doing this. Ian?
I'm ready just for a little break of attention to a different topic, but related to John Haddon. If you read the Times Inc., the latest Times Inc., there's a picture of kindergarten kids making a pattern in the snow, a spiral pattern, and John Haddon was there with his drone, a camera on his own, taking it. So John Haddon appears in the Times Inc. and this gets good publicity by working with these kindergarten kids who obviously had a blast making this pattern in the snow.
Oh, that's cool. I did see that. I didn't realize that John was the one who took the photo. Okay, well, so yeah, do we want to, are we all in agreement? I don't know if we need a vote on it, but do we want to authorize Ian and Dan and whoever's working on mapping to work on those few adjustments that we just mentioned and then run with it and bring it to John? And then we'll see the finished product whenever it's ready.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. I don't know if we need a vote on that. I would say just go ahead and do it.
And time check. I know we're not holding tabs to these, but just so we're aware, we haven't started what was supposed to be the biggest thing on the
Yeah.
agenda, which is the management plan.
Yeah, so I guess we'll briefly talk about, so we'll switch topics here. We're through the C buffer map updates, and we'll briefly touch on management plan timeline. I mean, we can cut this kind of short anyway, because I don't have like a strict, I didn't have a strict plan for this, but what I did want to bring up, I had sort of summarized this, I think, after our last meeting, that I think we are, now that we're pretty much through B6, and hopefully gonna maybe even get through B8 today, depending on the number of comments. We're rapidly closing in on, I think, being able to actually finish our edits to the management plan. I mean, I know we have some appendices and stuff, but you know, it's been a long road, and I think we're like the end is in sight. And so it seemed like it made sense if we could talk a little bit about the plan for finishing this thing and what that looks like timeline wise, and also whether or not we're going to end up with a copy editor and what that looks like, you know, with or without. Because as I've mentioned a few times before, I've heard rumblings of, you know, the unpopularity of the idea of getting a copy editor if it costs more than, you know, a few $100s or like $1,000. So like, if that's the case, then any final cleanup on the document is likely going to fall on, you know, the shoulders of this committee, and what that looks like. You know, there are a number of ways that could that we could do it. So yeah, ultimately, maybe this is ambitious, but at our current cadence of meeting, like I was hoping that we might be able to wrap up the management plan in the next 2 months or so. And that means that for some stuff like the appendices, once we decide on how we want to proceed with them, that's likely going to need to get delegated to a working group so that we can kind of like get that stuff organized, and then hopefully, you know, burn through it pretty quickly at our next meeting or next couple of meetings. Education, I think, is going to be pretty easy. Hopefully, we're just going to do a real quick polish tonight on the last couple things in B6. There is some work that needs to be done by either myself or Ian or Brad. We'll kind of figure that out, I guess, in terms of pulling all the different pieces of the management plan together to build out the full document again, because we've kind of worked on these little parts, but we need to like reintegrate them all into one cohesive document that actually looks correct and has all the most recent versions of all the different sections. But yeah, I guess I'm curious what folks' thoughts are, and am I, you know, fooling myself and thinking that we can wrap this in a couple of months now that we're pretty much through rec, and you know, which has kind of been the most challenging portion of the management plan.
I think a couple months is realistic.
Yeah. I would think, you know, maybe there's a way to hand that off to another working group, maybe, not the whole thing, but to sit down and just find out, find the most recent draft we have without, you know, eco and rec and the appendices, but all the other stuff, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And I've gone through my files. I've got, you know, what I have is the most recent, but it might be handy to get that. And then maybe just sit down and either some of us refresh our memories or just discover what in there is, you know, could be screaming out for some major work. I don't think there is, but there might be. But at least assess what's there and then come back to the committee and with a plan for maybe more working groups and try to get this thing done in less than 2 months. I mean, I agree with Sonia. I think theoretically, knowing what I know now, what I kind of feel about the whole thing, I think we can. And then at that point, I think we'll have a pretty good feel by having read through it, exactly what we ought to do as far as a copy editor, where that person might come from, you know, what maybe we do it if we do it internally, externally, or whatever. I don't know if there's a whatever, either one of those choices we have. And just do it that way. I think it'll just be hard to do that with the 9 of us or 8 of us sitting around a table waiting through that.
Yeah, that's not gonna work.
No.
I think that what's gonna have to happen is there needs to be like, either it's, we can create a working group to pull this stuff together, or assign it out to, like a single individual if they're feeling ambitious and they feel like they have all the components. The trick here is this has been passed around a number of times, and Ian probably has the most historical data on some of the stuff, although he did transfer a lot of that to me, and you might have gotten some of it too.
I think so.
And so I was going back through, it's a lot of work to dig back through all the various versions of the management plan and like trying to compare them all. And like I spent hours doing that and like still feel like I didn't really make much progress. So like I think it probably would be helpful to assign this task of like getting the entire thing sort of assembled and figuring out what the most recent edits of all the different sections are to a working group of like 2 or 3 people who feel like they understand like where, like what state this stuff is in. Because I would hate to like accidentally pull in an old version of like one of these sections after spending a bunch of time on it. Ian?
Oh, I raised my hand and then put it back down again because I realized my comment really belongs in the next agenda item, but just to sort of put a space holder there. It's relating to the monitoring section of
Oh, gotcha.
B6, or potentially of putting it back into B6. And but this maybe is Dan's point because he sent us some comments ahead of this meeting. But if I'll hold that thought until the appropriate place in the agenda if you think that's the way to do it.
Okay. Yeah, let's hold that thought for just a couple minutes. So yeah, in digging through all this stuff, I was able to find, I don't know who built it, probably you, Ian. It was a table. I found this after I had sent out the packet and agenda, but it was basically a table from May 14th of last year with a management plan completion sort of timeline that had each section of the management plan and then the last draft, like the year that it was last updated, and then notes like pending review or who had like what had been done with it. So I think that's a good starting point. I guess I could share it. It was just part of the packet of a former meeting, I guess probably from May 14th. So I think this will be helpful. It's very zoomed in. So this is obviously not up to date anymore because it's 8 months old or something at this point, but at least has some of this stuff. I guess I'd need to go through and figure out like I don't know what pending review means, or I don't know. We've got the various different, like, 3 drafts under review for recreation management. Like that's the B6 section. We did have 3 different versions. And then we kind of like, we now just have like our finished version. So like, this one could be like sort of checked off, but I don't know. I guess this is sort of, my plan was to go back through and kind of use this to get my bearings and then see if I can't figure out like where we stand on a lot of this stuff. I mean, we could endlessly edit some of these sections, but I think that there comes a time when we just have to say like, this is good enough. And like, there's going to be another round of potentially updating the management plan in another 8 years or whatever the timeline is. And I think we've really gotten through the super challenging stuff that has been sort of like the biggest like hurdle for this committee to come up with something that I think is workable for the community. And so, yeah, I guess I'm feeling like unless there's anything on this list that people feel like is way out of date or way incorrect, then that we should take the stuff that we've fixed, integrate it, And then for all the other stuff on this list, you know, there will be like a final read through of it, but I guess I'd really like to kind of minimize the continuing stream of comments that we have on like all different like areas of the management plan, because like, you know, we'll fall victim to the exact thing that this committee has been accused of, which is just spending endless amounts of time just making updates to the management plan. And, you know, the accusation has been just to jam things up essentially, or to like amuse ourselves or something. It's just like not the case, but
Well, we're being paid by the hour. So.
yeah, right. Exactly. We're all being paid handsomely. So yeah, I mean, I would love to have us just kind of zip through a lot of these unless we feel like there are any glaring errors. So I know there's not a lot, like a ton to like, I guess, talk about right now, but I just want to make sure that this is tracking with folks and that this makes sense. I know this means that this is probably going to be a decent amount of work for me and for, I guess, anyone else who would like to join this sort of management plan, organizational, like working group to kind of figure out where we need to go from here. But yeah, does that make sense to folks? Like, does this seem like a good plan? Am I missing anything obvious that should be considered?
I think that's a good template. I mean,
Yeah, glad you found
get
it.
our hands around this stuff.
I literally
Yeah,
went through like
great.
years of ECF meetings and was just like looking at all the packet items and trying to figure out what, you know, which ones were relevant, and so I could kind of
Pardon me.
think of.
I'd be happy to be on it. At the same time, I think some, Gesundheit. Oh.
Rhinos.
I think it'd be great to get some fresh eyes on it too with us, if we're gonna do that, you know.
Fresh
No.
eyes meaning
Fresh eyes, I mean, I've been staring at this thing for literally years. And probably missing stuff, you know, but I think somebody is kind of new to the grand organization of the thing instead of the detail stuff we've been talking about over the last few months, would be great.
yeah.
You know
I
what I
mean,
mean? And you've got relatively fresh,
That-
yours are fresher than mine.
that's what I was gonna say is like I feel like this is kind of new to me because I've been so focused
Okay.
on like little pieces of this since
Uh-huh.
I've been involved in this. So to me, I feel like I could be the fresh set of eyes.
Mhm.
I'm a little worried to like bring somebody else in with fresh eyes because this is just an overwhelming amount of like material to process unless we were like paying somebody, which like we're probably not going to end up doing, to basically look at all this stuff with a fresh set of eyes. Like I think the people that have the most context here are going to be the most helpful.
Mhm.
So people like you, people like Ian, like kind of know the history of the document and
Yeah,
might be able to shed the most light here. I don't know, like the only other person I can think of that might have good information that we could pull in would be maybe I could hit up Daniel. I mean, he's not on the committee anymore, so technically he could be brought into a working group, you know, without violating any kinds of like quorum or, you know, open meeting law stuff. I don't know what he's up to or if he would have any interest in, you know, giving any of his thoughts on
Yeah.
where things stand, or if he's just kind of past all this stuff at this point. But I don't know. I guess if I had to pick a group of people to organize it, it seems like me, Brad, and Ian like would make the most sense.
Great.
But I don't want to volunteer anyone. I mean, I know some people, I mean, it's a lot of work here, and I don't want to assume anyone has like the bandwidth to do it. But
and fairly quickly, right? Because the idea is to bring it back to the committee and put
I'd like
something like this up and say, this is kind of
yeah.
where we are and, you know.
And yeah, I mean, I'm also fine to work. I would love to work with at least one person. Like if that's just like me and you, Brad, like I feel like we have a good working relationship. Like I'm fine with that too. I'm really not trying to like dump more work on Ian. But I do think that we want to cover this stuff sooner rather than later so we can have a much better idea of exactly where we stand with all this stuff
Yeah.
by like next meeting or at the latest the meeting after. We have enough stuff to work on in the meantime with the final polish of B6, B8, and then the appendices that like we can get by without like the sort of like master plan, but we're going to need it soon, especially if we're going to give an accurate timeline.
Yeah.
And I sure as heck want to finish this management plan before we have like term changeovers at the end of May. But I think that shooting for a couple months from now is better. You know, if we could be wrapping up in March, then that feels a lot better to me. And of course, there's going to be some, there's going to be like the feedback loop. I don't want to call it feedback loop, but the like feedback phase where we're going to pass this off to some of the other committees in town. And then also, I do think we're going to end up doing, you know, sort of like full public feedback forum, you know, much like the one that happened in the middle school like a few years ago. And like, I don't know what the timing like that's going to be like, but I mean, if we could get this all done while we still have our current group together, I think that would be a lot better than, you know, a few people potentially like terming out and maybe reapplying or not. If we have a changing of the guard and then suddenly we're into this like, you know, really, I don't know, like hopefully it's not going to feel as contentious as it was last time around. But I think that that's not ideal timing for switching people over in their positions. So I guess what I'm trying to say is like, I want to shoot for the 2 months, but if we can get it all kind of like tied up, you know, by May, that would be ideal. So yeah, I guess I've talked a lot. It sounds like I don't want to volunteer you, Brad, but it sounds like
Yeah, I would.
you're
Sure.
potentially interested in working on this. Ian, do you have thoughts? I know I've mentioned you a few times. I really don't want to assume that you have the availability or the interest. Maybe it would be helpful for me to have like just like a short phone call with you to like sort of get my bearings, and then I can kind of like uh go out and pull all the stuff together. You've done so much work for the committee, and then you've done all this mapping stuff, and you've been doing the Trail Finder stuff, like, and I know you've got other stuff going on in your life too. So, I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
From my perspective, I think it would be really valuable to put all the pieces together and be able to see the big picture. And, you know, that's a task several of us could do, you know. But yeah, I'm in a good position, I think, because I've been archiving these various versions and have the latest versions saved, as you do, Sam. So I can get involved in that, but you know, do my bit along with others.
That'd be great.
Okay, well, I guess I'll coordinate with you and Brad, maybe using this table that I have up, and I guess my initial thoughts on like kind of where we're at before, you know, getting you to, you know, look into stuff and see, and you can kind of just check my work and see if I'm off base or if I'm on the right track. And then depending on your availability and your interest, maybe Brad and I just get together for a few hours and we just like dig through all the files and try to piece the puzzle together. And then we could pull you in as necessary, Ian. And that way it's not putting as much load on you.
Sure. And definitely the timeline. I'd like to see the timeline accelerated. You know, my personal position is I intend to rotate off the committee in May, and so it would be, of course, nice to see things getting finalized or you know into a good position when I rotate off the committee. That's my, you know, from a personal perspective.
Yeah, I agree. I think that that would be ideal if we could wrap this while we're still in the current term. For all those who are, you know, potentially rotating off the committee, but also just, you know, for the benefit of the town too, because it's been a long time, and you know, people are ready to see this thing move forward. Cool. Well, I think I've got what I need to for the next moves here. So I'll coordinate with Brad and Ian on that. And then hopefully next meeting we'll have a check-in with, maybe we'll have the full assembled document, maybe we won't, but at least hopefully we'll have the checklist with like, hey, here's all the sections with the updated, like last time it was updated and like where we stand. Yeah. Okay. I know we're way behind schedule, but hopefully we can at least get through B6 and then maybe B8 because I don't think there's a whole lot to do here. So let me get my agenda back. Yeah, so on to item E, revisions of the management plan. We've got about half the time, a little less than that than allocated, but we'll see how far we can make it. So first order of business, final pass on B6, aka the recreation section. So it was in the packet, but I will share my screen as well. And I just wanted to just do one final pass. We kind of like finished it last meeting, but there were a couple small things that we didn't like fully vote on or approve. So I wanted to just make sure that those looked good. And then also I added in the diagrams that we had like approved separately. So they're now sort of integrated into the doc. So I just want to make sure that we are all sort of giving our final stamp of approval here. So I'm not really going to stop on anything that's black as we, typically do. Like we've been through this many times and I don't think there's anything here that we necessarily need to revisit. So I'm just going to keep going until we hit something red. I think the first thing is, so as we were talking about with the mapping, this is the proposed language, and this has actually changed since last meeting. So we do need to talk about this as a group. This is proposed language for the forestry reserve zone, which applies to those two areas we were just talking about with the mapping. So that white one in the northernmost section, and then also the sort of, pseudo hemlock zone in the western just to the west of the main wildlife corridor. So I don't know if folks got a chance to read this, or I can just give folks a quick second if people want to read it and see what they think about this language for the forestry reserve zone. So this was, basically, adapted from from like Ethan's work, like the forestry management plan, and these specifically designated areas where he thought it would be good to try to protect these by, leaving them alone if possible. Note, we're not in this section, like the proposal here is not to put buffers on this stuff. And there also is potential allowance to cut through them. I know the big like elephant in the room that I'll just get out of the way right now is the northernmost reserve zone is the section where any connecting trail to Sip of Sunshine would be. So that is something that should be stated because that, would be affected by this language. I don't think that it means you couldn't put a trail through there because based on the way this reads, it's like crossing a stream. You could still just try to keep it brief. And if you were trying to connect something, you could still do that. But the general thought here is, and maybe there's a way to soften this language, but the general thought here is, hey, these are like special places in the forest that we should be trying to protect, but we're not going to be as heavy-handed as we are with these other wildlife zones that we're really trying to do our best to stay out of. So thoughts? Does anyone have questions, concerns, comments?
I got one.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm looking up the the forestry section. Does because I haven't read that one in a while. What does Ethan say about trails in the forestry section?
Page 5. Look at page 5, right below the map, Julian, where he talks about. You'll see the same language there.
The forestry section, though. I'm not sure which document.
You're looking at the management plan. No, this is the forestry management plan, separate document. So you got it. Is that what you got? Okay.
Well, I have forestry activities in the revised management plan, which is the one that Ethan wrote, right?
Oh, there's a whole different document. That's sort of a summary of what's in the Maine Forestry Management Plan, which is, I don't know, 50 pages on its own.
Forestry Management Plan.
And that's
Okay.
on our
That's the
webpage.
2019 one?
Probably,
Written by Ethan.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, and I think
Yeah,
reviewed
yeah.
by Brandon Senior.
Did he review the whole thing or did he just review the section that was
I think he
excerpted
did, though.
for um
Thought he did the whole thing, but
isn't this on like the main ACF page?
Yeah.
Yeah, forestry management
Yeah.
plan. Oh, I didn't realize I was so zoomed in. But yeah, if you haven't found it already, I guess you said 2019, so this is the
yeah,
this is the document that we're
2019. Good.
talking about.
I don't actually, I'm sorry, I don't actually see it on the main page. Sorry, guys. I should
Okay,
have had
so
this
if
open
you
before.
if you go to the main ACF page on the town site,
Yeah.
and if you just control F for forestry management plan, it's got rather than just being like a normal link, it's got this like button. I don't know why.
About 3/4 of the page down.
Oh, I see.
Under
Yeah,
community
right. I
inputs.
see. Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Gotcha.
so-
So in the reserve section, he suggests what you're saying, page 5, Brad?
Yep, right, down at the bottom. Keep
Zone
scrolling.
1, zone 2, zone
Zone
3.
three.
Zone 3 you're talking about?
Yeah. And then the following paragraphs, which sort of summarize, brings it all together.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah, and on the top of 6, it does say recreational and forest management trails may cross the zone if no viable alternative exists to access a portion of the ACF, but should generally avoid these areas. So
Yeah.
the prescription is not just for like timber harvest, it's for recreational use as well.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. So but we added one to ours, right? So he says may cross the zone if no viable alternative exists, but should generally avoid these areas. And you have adapted that to say as few trails as possible.
Yep, and cross the zone as efficiently as possible too. The very last, in that second bullet, the idea of minimal trails and cross as efficiently as possible.
Yeah.
I think you could also rewrite it as like, limit trail development instead of develop as few trails as possible. I don't know. It's like you could potentially soften the language while still like maintaining the the main thrust of what's being said, which is like, try only to cross them if no viable alternative exists, which is lifted directly from what Ethan wrote.
Yeah. I mean, I think Ethan's language is fine. I think I might prefer to frame it in the positive. Seek other alternatives where viable. Limit trails in these sections to where there are no viable alternatives, something like that. Just because, like, I don't know, it feels more in the spirit of what we're trying to do here, which is, you find appropriate places to recreate. So, like, where possible, find an alternative, and where not possible, and then fine. But develop as few trails as possible. Yes.
Yeah, like, so what would you say? Like prioritize trail development outside these zones?
Yeah, seek alternatives for trail routing outside of the reserve zones where possible. And then cross the zone as efficiently as possible. I think that's fine. I just think we need to be a little bit careful about, we can get the same outcome and protections if we phrase it and frame it a little more positively. I don't think makes a lot of sense for a recreation section to be full of all the things that you can't do. Even though effectively it's the same thing, but glass half full or glass half empty, I guess is what I'm saying. And we're going to have to be very careful about how this is received. And we're going to get, we just need to make sure that we're phrasing and framing all of this as constructively as possible.
Yeah, I hear that. Yeah, looking up at some of the other sections, it's like we do, talk about like prohibiting trail development in other areas or avoiding trail development in other areas. So I feel like it's not inconsistent with some of the rest of this section, but I'm happy to try to rephrase this as being a little bit more positive if we think that's gonna like take the edge off. I can try to just rewrite this live. So you were saying like seek alternative routes or
Seek alternatives for trail routing, I think you said, Ian, Julian, rather, where possible.
so I guess it would be like where possible.
Seek alternatives for trail
routing.
Around, we should say around reserve zones where possible.
Check the screen. He's written it, maybe?
Oh. Grab that.
There you go.
Yeah, just some ideas here. But I mean, I'm just nitpicking. I mean, if Ethan says reserve zones should be minimized, then fine.
So we're gonna get rid of the first bullet and go with the second bullet.
That was my thought.
We just have to make sure we're paraphrasing his thoughts. I was trying to avoid that,
Yeah.
Or we don't paraphrase them at all. We just put that sentence in just like it is.
That's what I thought would be the simplest, just pick up his language. We're, kind of put it in our style a bit, but in our formatting, but.
so
What
just
does he say?
just pulling this.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think Ethan's knowledge and understanding of the trade-offs of all this stuff, I think, is pretty unassailable. So to the extent we can just avoid
Yeah.
a fight with anybody, let's just use what he said. And you can even say, well, I guess you already do. See forest management plan.
Yeah. I guess sorry, it's getting messy. Let me try it like this. So that was before. I'm just gonna put and then
As a reference, just paste his in below and then
what's that?
I was wondering if you could paste what he had in below here, just a reference, so you don't have to keep jumping.
Well, that's what I just did.
Oh,
So
good.
basically, this is what we had before. This is what we were like starting to write, but then this is what's directly from his document.
Yeah, my proposal would be to just cut and paste what he put in and
Yeah.
just leave that the only bullet. It's good, it's complete, it's comprehensible.
Yeah, we just remove all of this
That'd
stuff.
be the easiest. Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I mean, that is also consistent with and per the forestry management plan, this would be a direct quote from it.
Yeah.
And I guess
Can we
could
say that?
We
For the forest management and then put it in quotations?
yeah, we could just get rid of the
Absolutely.
bullet
Yeah.
entirely and just
Yeah.
say like this.
Yeah,
Right.
and then it's then we don't have to take any bullets for that. It's just already
Yeah.
there.
Right.
Yeah,
It-
good.
Right.
That makes it clear.
Yep.
However, recreational forest management trails may. Should we change this to like these zones? Or I guess we're talking about just, yeah, that's fine.
You could put it in brackets,
Yeah, because that's the other thing here is like there are multiple distinct zones, there's the two, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
like we might,
Oh, wait.
rather
Yeah.
than saying, it's a little confusing to just say like
It's
there's
really
one
confusing.
zone. Because
Well, it is. That's the problem. It's all zone 3.
I
And
know,
it's
but
scattered. Yeah, I know. I was that's tough to get around, but I know what you're saying. I mean, maybe to have.
yeah, I guess it does just describe it. It says it sets aside several parts of the ACF as zone 3.
Yeah.
So it does define it. So I guess it's fine.
Yeah.
So I think it's good as is. Are folks cool with this?
Yes.
Okay, let's make it so. Great. Okay, moving on. And then
Oops, you. right.
Little red.
this, I guess we can. This was like my reminder that hopefully by the time we finish the management plan, we have the map that we were just talking about earlier, from John Haddon, and then we can put that in, in B6. Because then you have your full like template of like, hey, I want to build a trail. Here are all the rules, and here's the map, and then you have everything you need to
Right.
to go
Yeah.
do your thing.
Good.
So that I'm going to leave red just because that's just like a reminder that we still are hopefully going to get that map and insert it. Oh yeah. And then here are the finalized, hopefully, images that I created. So here's the buffer. Here's like the trail deviation, like terminology. So we've got our buffer width, buffer zone. There's a sensitive area. Oops, this is, no, I had the right one. A trail encroachment, fragmented area. That's all just consistent with the language that we've written above. I'm assuming that's fine with folks.
Mhm.
And then here's the more confusing one, but
Like your frankness.
it's still, I think, pretty explanatory, self-explanatory with the text. Just basically shows two trails, how far they encroach. This is not accurate to scale, but I think with the text, people can figure it out.
Yep.
So there's that. And then, yeah, that's it. So we basically just had forestry reserve zone and then those diagrams. So unless people have issues with the diagrams, which it doesn't seem like people do, because we'd already sort of approved them anyway. I think we're good on B6. Is that?
Yep.
Should we? Dan had the thoughts.
Oh yeah, we should mention that. And Ian had mentioned
Yeah.
it too. So yeah, the question is, wildlife monitoring,
Or
as
trail monitoring. I think.
well,
Any
let's just say monitoring.
Any monitoring.
Because I think that it kind of like, it turns like the way I conceive of monitoring is monitoring for humans and wildlife. I think that technically it makes more sense for us to have like a separate, document or section. Now, of course, we don't, because we're trying to get this done quickly. I don't think it makes sense to have the monitoring like be a prerequisite for us needing to complete the management plan, unless we're on track to get this stuff done in a couple months. In the meantime, we're like in parallel working on the monitoring stuff, and then we basically finish that like while the other committees are like looking at the rest of the management plan, and then we like insert the wildlife section after or something, and tell them like, hey, we also have this final piece. But I think it deserves to be outside of the management plan or in its own section that would be like B10 or whatever. I don't know what the number would be, but you're good. But I think that, I don't know, there's a lot that we could go into in monitoring. And I don't know if it belongs in the rec section, but I'm not married to that idea either. So if folks have, thoughts, I mean, both Dan and Ian, I think, have thoughts on this. So I'd love to hear from you both on what your thoughts were on monitoring and whether or not we should try to integrate it into B6 or choose a different method. Ian?
Yeah, my suggestion is that the text, we have existing text. Dan proposed some additions to that text to kind of explain the content. If we combine the two appendices, then it seems the combined appendix would be a good place to put that text. And if it's in a well-developed format already, it would be easy just to slot it in there, and that would be an appropriate place for it if we decide to go with a combined appendix. But we should hear from Dan because he had a lot of comments, I think.
Agreed.
I mean, I'm not sure. I thought that document was on the agenda for tonight, so that's why I put comments on it, but apparently it's not. So I feel like we can come back to it. I'm not sure how I got that. I thought it was in one of the emails that came out, but my bad, I guess.
Well, they're good comments. Yeah,
Definitely.
I'm not sure where that came from either. Because yeah, I don't think I sent that out.
Yeah, I don't know. Somehow it popped up and I was like, oh, I got to work on that. But it's a
It
big
had been.
topic. I think maybe it would be good to just like actually, if we want to work on that, give everybody a chance to look at it and then revisit it as a group.
Yeah, I agree. It is a big topic. I think there are also, we've kind of touched on this slightly. I think back in late summer, early fall, I had like sort of kind of volunteered like once my schedule freed up to maybe work on a monitoring plan, although then I became the chair of RCC and I've got other stuff going on in my life. So my schedule has not freed up. And we also haven't finished the management plan yet. So like I don't know what capacity I have to do a whole wildlife monitoring
Yeah.
plan. But
And
what
I think
want
it's a
is-
really big topic. And I know we had said we were going to get some outside expert advice on it. And I only made those comments tonight because for some reason I thought it was like under time urgent. But if it's not, I think we'd be better off getting that feedback and approaching the whole monitoring question more carefully.
Yeah, okay, great. I love that.
Mm.
I think that we should revisit, and I think that we can, yeah, there are a lot of good opportunities. Like, I think that as far as like putting stuff in the appendix goes, like appendix, I feel like should be sort of like informative as to like, historical stuff and like, I don't know, context for like why we're making some of the decisions we're making. But a wildlife monitoring plan is very prescriptive. And I feel like that should not be in the appendix because like it should be in the body of like, well, what are we doing in the forest? Like what is the like ACFC tasked with doing in the forest? And monitoring shouldn't go in an appendix because like a lot of people don't read the appendices, right? And it's just like kind of if it's just like some added material at the end, people are gonna not really see it. So, but I also see like wildlife monitoring as being sort of like an active sort of like living thing, right? You're like testing stuff and then you're recording your data and you're like changing your plans around and stuff. So like I feel like because some of those like types of items, like the rules we've talked about, like having in a separate area, which I should remind myself to put on our list. There should be like a separate list of things that aren't in the management plan for our timeline, I guess. But yeah, so I feel like yeah, the monitoring plan kind of deserves its own section or should just live outside of the management plan. Shouldn't be in the appendix and like there's a lot of good opportunities there, even for like funding and coordinating with RCC with like the CRF, like if maybe we could get some like audio traps or video cameras or, even hire somebody to come set some of that stuff up.
We had Andrea Shortsleeve came in on the wildlife, an early draft. I was just I think we have an action item in B6 about doing one of these, which kind of commits us, which
okay.
commits
Yeah,
us
yeah.
to doing it too, which is good. So if we all got, hit by an asteroid.
Yeah, you're right. It does say here, develop and implement a plan for monitoring and responding to major changes in natural resources, trail conditions, and human traffic.
Yeah.
Um,
So that will hold us
yeah.
to doing this.
And then we also have monitor trail use and wildlife activity,
Oh, yeah.
utilizing cameras, microphones, trail counters. So yeah, I think we've kind of covered our bases here, and then we kind of we can flesh that out in a separate document that maybe eventually gets folded into the management plan in 5 or 10 years or whenever the next revision is. But for now, I don't think it's a prerequisite for us finishing.
Yeah.
Julian, I think you had your hand up first, and then Ian after.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. We've already said we'll monitor. We've obligated ourselves to do it. Less is more. We don't need more text. We probably need less text. Then we can put all kinds of reflections about what kind of monitoring makes sense and different approaches in the appendix. But we should definitely not put anything important in the appendix, nothing action wise. And I think what
Yeah.
we have here is good enough to force our hands to get off our butts and do a monitoring plan once we approve this thing.
Thanks, Ian.
Yeah, I don't think it's this thing appearing in our meeting and maybe not on the agenda. That's not Dan's bad, it's my bad, because I know I've mentioned this in previous meetings. It's just sort of been agitating that we have this material and we shouldn't lose it. There was effort put into creating it, and as Brad has just pointed out, it is called for in the management plan, and it seems rather central to management, that to forest management, that we have a plan to monitor, to keep an eye on what's happening. So that was my incentive for sending it to committee members as I understood as an informational item, because it had been raised in previous meetings, and I wanted to remind people of the material that we had available. So I hope we don't lose it. That's my bottom line.
Yeah, agreed. I don't want to lose that either. I think it's important, and I think we'll get to it. I just don't know if it needs to be in this management plan, especially considering we've kind of tasked ourselves to do this in the rec section at the very least. And again, like, I would hate for us to drag this out and continue to try to like perfect and like add every last little thing that we've thought of that could end up causing this revision process to take another 6 months or another year or however long. Okay. Well, I think that's good for monitoring, which we'll talk about in the future. I guess I'll leave myself a note about monitoring, and then another note about pull together non-MP resources like rules, etc. Okay, so we're very close to time. So I would like to do, we don't even have to pull them up. I would like to see if we can't squeeze in. I think we're gonna have to push education to next meeting. That does give people time to make comments if they have any. I don't believe I got feedback from anyone on education. I did send it out very last minute. I think the doc looks pretty good. I don't think it's very controversial, but I'll remind folks and send that back out. If people want to send comments, I can, combine those, and then we can talk about that in the next meeting. But what I would like to do right now is, if we could talk about high level, the rec and eco and combined appendices and what we want to do. If anyone has any arguments for them being separate or for them being combined, now would be a good time to talk about that. And hopefully we can come to a consensus in the next 10 minutes before we close out the meeting on which route we want to take. And then hopefully we can designate someone or some people to kind of pull together the most recent sort of like version of the whatever appendix or appendices that we want to go with. And then we can work on that rather than the current state, which is kind of messy. Julian.
Can we just remind ourselves what the purpose of the appendices are? Why do we need appendices?
The appendices are giving some of the context for why we're making the decisions that we're making in sections like, ecology and recreation. So it talks about some of the important natural features of the forest, and, how it sits in a forest block, and how it, what type of wildlife is there, and what types, basically it's meant to fill in some of the gaps where the section, all the B sections are supposed to be very prescriptive, where it's like, ideally, I know some of them are a little lengthy. Ideally, it's like, here are the actions, like here are the goals and here are the actions. Like the education section is a really good example of that, where it's like, here's a goal, here's some actions, here's a goal, here's some actions. Whereas if you want to know, well, why did we choose these goals and actions? That's when you go to the appendix, and the appendix will say like, hey, here's your like ecological history, or here's your like, here's some more context on like recreation in Richmond, so that way it gives you more of a full picture on why we're making some of the decisions that we're making in the B sections.
In the past, all that, in the current plan, that all comes in front of, or it's intermingled with objectives and stuff.
Yeah.
And the idea, was to get the action items right up front, that most people
Yeah.
really don't want to go through all that, as justifiable as it is. They just want to know, can I do this? How do I do this? What are we trying to do with the forest? And then the concept was, why don't we then put the upfront stuff in the back for anyone who really wants to know what's behind these different things we say up front.
Yep. Now I'm remembering now we were trying to organize and be a little neater and a little more ruthless with our text in the main body.
And then it came up that it was hard to put background to what we were saying in recreation without referring to ecology, which meant we were sort of repeating ourselves in both, in ecology, we would talk about the importance of, protecting stuff and the way the forest worked. And then we ended up doing some of that, not as much, but some of it in recreation. So like the idea, it might have been Jimmy's that said, could we combine them? So I took a crack at that. And that's what we have.
Right.
And you
Right. And
agree?
the appendices is sort of like the underlying logic, the justification stuff we didn't want to put in the main plan. But it's not really, it's sort of informing someone of the sources of decisions. It's not
basically
binding in any way. It's not, it doesn't.
Not really, no.
It's not binding. It's basically just like, here's the context like for which we base some of the stuff off of, right? Like, so there are going to be like references to maybe some of the like scientific studies, and here are some images of some of the maps that shows you ACF in the context of the greater Richmond area or whatever. So yeah, it's not really binding. It's just supposed to be informative. It's sort of like the extra credit if you're wondering like, well, how did they come up with all these decisions?
Yeah.
Then you go to the appendix if you want to read 20 pages on or maybe not quite that much, but read a number of pages on ecology in ACF. Then it'll give you that context, which will help inform why the decisions were made in the B section.
Yeah.
Dan?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I mean, I think the appendix is basically the justification. It's like if you write a grant, you have your grant, you have your budget, and then you have to do your budget justification section. Kind of explains the underlying logic. So I think it makes sense to include it. I also think it makes sense to combine them because everything is interrelated. Like having two separate appendices seems clunky to me.
We do talk about what's permitted and what's not permitted in the appendix. I think we should probably,
we need to fix that.
Yeah, we should probably not do that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the point here is like to bring it back to how I opened this was high level. Like we should just be talking about how do we want to proceed with these. Then we'll get into some of those like and because there's like those appendix the appendices are pretty messy right now. And I think there's a lot of overlap between what's in B6 now and maybe the eco section. And I don't think it should be so prescriptive. And like, so basically there's a lot of like cutting and editing we could do. And I want to delegate that to a person or a working group so that we can come back with sort of like a fresh take on the appendix without having to like go back through all this stuff in the full committee. Cause that could take us 2 or 3 meetings, right? So all I'm trying to get get done right now is for us to come to a consensus on, do we prefer combined or do we prefer separate? I guess my thought is I like the combined approach because it does help actually reduce the overall amount of text. And it also helps kind of like, I don't know, sort of like bridge the like sort of divide, so to speak, between like eco and rec. And so I like the idea. I think it kind of unifies like, and because we found that like the eco section and the rec section were sort of inextricably tied to one another. And then there were like concerns with people saying like, well, this doesn't read much like a rec section, you know, or you know, and this kind of will hopefully help bridge that and inform the reader. Well, this is why they're tied, and this is why maybe it doesn't read as much like a rec section as you're expecting, because like these two topics are so closely knit. And so
Yeah.
I like the idea of bridging that in the appendix, but that's just my personal thought.
I like the idea of having a combined one too, but this one is, I mean, if you're looking for something about recreation in here, there's nothing in here about recreation except what you can't do, and a zoning plan that is really in the management plan that shouldn't be in the appendix. So, I mean, it's basically, you know, let's see, how many pages of environmental considerations, you know, which is fine. It's like 12 pages and then a page, less than a page, that really just goes into recreational rules. It doesn't really give a lot of background on recreation. So if we are going to go for combined thing, we should probably at least make an effort to talk about why we value recreation and what it means for the community and how it's a central part of Richmond culture and how this forest was intended to be recreationally used by the residents, you know, per the easement. Because we talk about the conservation easement part and we talk about how we have ecological management goals. We don't really talk about the recreational ones in this thing. So if we're going to make a genuine effort at combining them, they should be genuinely balanced, I would say.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I guess
Like if you strike the parts that are about rules that end up being in the management plan anyway, where they should be, there's
Yeah.
really nothing about recreation in this appendix.
Well, right at the top, Julian.
Right at the top. What am I looking at? Achieving balance?
So, well, you've been meeting community interest, right? Today it has rich research, in the first paragraph, we talk about recreation. We talk about the requirements for recreation. The idea of this whole achieving balance is a lot of recreation in there, what we're trying to do. And why we've got, you know, this approach and at these different levels.
Yeah, and then you got a paragraph or two about people's recreational preferences, and then
Yep.
12 pages about
Yeah.
conservation. So I just don't, it doesn't feel balanced to me either in length or in substance or in intent.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious, because there is a lot of ecological history, do you think it's likely that, oh, Julian's gone.
Uh-oh.
All right, well,
Didn't plug his computer in.
I maybe ran out of voice.
The special consideration thing goes into hunting, trapping, snowmobiling. I mean,
I totally get what Julian's saying, and I think that it's a good point that like I mean, I don't think that it's going to be balanced in length because I think there's a lot of like ecological history to cover in the section.
right.
So if we're looking for length balance, like I don't think that that's ever going to happen. And whether or not you have a combined appendix or you have separate appendices, it's still going to look mismatched, right? Because you're either going to have a combined, you're going to be like, wow, this says like it's for, you know, recreation and for ecology, but it really seems like it's mostly ecology. The flip side is we have two separate sections, and one is you know, much shorter than the other. And so either way, you're still going to see like a slight like lopsidedness. Hey Julian, sorry we lost you.
Back? Oh, good.
Sorry about that. That wasn't meant to be a mic drop. My computer battery. No.
I was like, oh, he's gone.
Had to get on the iPad. Sorry about that.
Very good. Yeah, so I was just mentioning that I feel like because of the like ecological history and just like situation of ACF, it's going to be hard for those two for the eco and the rec to be like the same in length. But I do get your concern, and I think that you bring up some really good points about how the way we talk about some of this stuff could be more focused on like a recreation perspective, especially if we're combining them. And
Well, we could jump to the recreation only section.
well, yeah,
And see what's,
exactly. So that was my thought as well. Is like we can pull a lot of stuff from the rec only appendix and then do a better job of combining it. I think what we can also do, because what this is supposed to do is help bridge the gap. Like, we can kind of explain like the methodology for like the trail proposal process and the trail deviation process, or maybe not the methodology, but go in a little bit further as to like, here's how we ended up with what we ended up with, and like why the committee feels like this is a balanced approach. So I think it needs some work. The main question still remains, like, do we want to do separate or combined? And then we can basically have somebody take a stab at trying to rewrite this in a way that feels better.
the thing was, in the original, a lot of the original moved up front.
Yep.
So a lot of the content. There's this thing, a draft for a trail maintenance commitment agreement. I think we've figured out a way to dodge that, leave that out.
Need that.
Trail development stewardship, we've got development covered. Stewardship is, I think would be in that monitoring plan mainly.
Maybe.
So community interest and benefits, I think we've got that material. What else would there be?
Well, I think we can figure that out outside of like the committee time.
Yeah,
I guess I'm just curious, like if people have, if people have a strong feeling on like combined versus separate,
Right,
because that's all we need to know right now.
not so much the
Like,
content.
Yeah, we're like
Combined.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Ray. I also think
I say
combined.
Yeah, I'm indifferent to separate or combined at this point. We've been around this one for a while. I just think if we're going to combine them, then we need to make a genuine effort to make it balanced and complete.
Could you try to then suggest some stuff that,
You did. I mean, we can go back and like read the read the transcript or like rewatch this section, but Julian had some good takeaways for ways that you could improve the recreation appendix.
okay.
So
I
think
I can send some notes too.
Good.
Although I'm terrible at doing my homework, guys, you know that. But I'll do. I'll see what I can do.
Great, thanks.
I mean, if we, I mean, for whoever ends up looking at this, I feel like you did rattle off like, at least 5 things that like would be good, and I think if we just back up to that section of the recording, it should be easy enough to find. There was some good stuff. Like if I were doing it, that's exactly what I would do, is like, back up to 10 minutes before now. And Julian had some really nice comments on approach and how you could make it feel more balanced. So all right, cool. So combined it is. The question is, who's going to work on it? There's so much work to do. I don't know if I should agree to do this because I feel like I've burdened myself with enough work that I just don't know if I could take on like rewriting the combined appendix.
I can try.
Yeah.
That material.
Okay. Yeah, if you want to do a first pass and then
Yeah.
like I could look at it and then,
Absolutely.
I feel like I can be fairly objective about like the rec stuff, and could probably do a pass, and then maybe we deliver that to the committee for next meeting and we could take a look and see. I think we'd want to try to get it done in a week and a half-ish, because then that way it gives people some time to to look at it over the weekend. Or hopefully, give people like 5 days or something to look at it before the meeting. Great. So we're gonna have to push wildlife or education to next meeting, which is fine. We're 1 minute over, so we'll go to closure. We should bring up quickly. I know that Ian has expressed this, but because we're talking about business for upcoming meetings and our future meetings, I know Ian's mentioned that he would prefer not to meet at the current cadence and length at which we're currently meeting. My opinion is I would like to keep this cadence and length until we finish the management plan. I feel like we do get a lot done in these like 2.5 hour meetings, even if it is like a bit of a challenge at times. I think that if we go back to 1 meeting a month, or if we cut things down to, 1.5 hours twice a month instead of 2.5 hours, I think we're just going to slow things down. And I'm really worried that we're not going to be able to hit some of these deadlines we talked about, like 2 months or, by May, like getting all this stuff done. So I'm certainly open to doing whatever like the committee wants to do as a whole. I know that some folks are feeling a little bit like tired and burnt out, and so I don't want to burn people out either, right? So it's not helpful if we keep this cadence if suddenly people aren't attending meetings or they decide they want off the committee. So does anyone have any strong opinions or want to say anything about this? We need to probably keep it brief because we're,
Is there an advantage to go to 8 instead of 8:30? Are we gaining that much more in the last half hour?
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair compromise that we could keep.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep the twice a month, but go down to 2 hours. 6 to 8.
Well done, Reich. Excellent.
Right. Great. I think that's a good choice for now, and then we can continue to slide that as necessary. Like if people are still feeling like burned out or whatever, then we could potentially change it again.
Yep.
Does that seem fair, Ian? That's at least moving in the direction you want to see it go, right? So, will that work for folks?
Think so.
Yes.
Yeah, my feeling about this is personally, I really kind of lose ability to concentrate after an hour or two of meetings, but I think it applies to the whole committee. I think our productivity really falls off after a couple of hours. So moving back to a 2-hour meeting and really trying to make it efficient and productive is better than allowing more time, but that isn't really well managed for being productive.
Well, you got 2 hours.
All right. Well, we'll go to 2 hours and we'll see how productive we feel, and then if we feel like we need to change it again, then we can. But I think that's a good plan for now. So the next meeting, based on our current cadence, would be February 9th. I'm sorry. Yeah, February 9th. I didn't update that on my calendar. Whoops. So that's 2 weeks from today, and then our regularly scheduled meeting would be the 23rd. So yeah, those are our next meetings, and we'll do it from 6 to 8. So 2/9 and 2/23 are the next ones on deck.
Yeah, the
And
23rd school break is on, so I won't be there for the 23rd.
Okay, good to know. That's also we could. Oh yeah, I guess that is going to be true regardless of which day of the week we do that. If it's that week, that's also the town budget info meeting. One of the town budget info meeting nights.
Yep.
Which I might need to present at as like the chair of RCC. So there's some overlap there. We can talk about it at the next meeting. I don't really want to talk about that right now. Wherever. Exactly. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Cool. Sonia moves, right second. All in favor, say aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
Yeah.
Aye. Thank you so much, everybody. I
Good
appreciate
night,
your
everybody.
continued hard work and dedication to all this stuff.
Yeah.
Good work, Sam.
See you
Thanks,
soon.
everybby.
Thank you, Sam.
Catch you.
Yeah. Thanks,
Yeah.
Sam.
Enjoy the
Good night.
snow.
Yeah, good night.